Taiwanese government, the lawmaking bodies, and the presidency in Taiwan. And so, yeah, her main audience is in China, not in Taiwan. And the worst thing is that she advocates for the military invasion by force onto Taiwan from the CCP while still living in Taiwan. So she gets to enjoy all of the freedoms of the, things like speech, religion, the ability to vote. And, you don't have to worry about saying things like this and have to be jailed for it. Can you imagine the same thing were to be done in China? A Taiwanese person, if they tried to say, let's, democratize China, let's liberate the Chinese people from the CCP, do you think where they would end up? Probably in jail or worse. So this move is the first time that the Taiwanese immigration authorities has done something, revoke a person's permit to stay or visa based on their language. This extreme rhetoric against the foundation of Taiwan's values, which are now rooted in democracy and the ability to have a elected government. I always say this, right? Taiwan stands for everything that the CCP opposes, and it's a shining example of the alternative to what the CCP wants the Chinese people to live under. Because the part of their lie about Taiwan is that, oh, Chinese people cannot live under a democracy. Chinese people have been ruled by an emperor for 5,000 years, so that they cannot survive without a totalitarian leader above them, and that, there's no way, it's not unique to the Chinese situation. While Taiwan, the elephant in the room in that conversation, says, look at us, we're perfectly fine being a multi-party government system. And they always say that, oh, Taiwan is messy because look, they have fights in the Congress, they have fights amongst lawmakers. That's not civilized. Look at China's 2 sessions. We just had Xi Jinping come in, everybody bows and claps. Although I don't know why he's rubbing his hands on his legs the whole time. Seems nervous to me. Yeah, total, absolute, legitimate power, right? Okay, kind of off track, but let's talk about her. She had done this after immigrating to Taiwan through marriage, opening her Douyin account, essentially spreading influence. She even has her daughter doing a kid account, also being pro-China. Now, what she's essentially done is weaponize immigration through these legal pathways to come to Taiwan, choking the island red, and pumping out anchor babies in the process. Internet users believe she fake divorced her mainland husband and left for a Taiwanese man, got married in Taiwan, got her residence permit, divorced that Taiwanese man, subsequently filed for reuniting with her family from the mainland, moved her mainland husband and their family to Taiwan. Seems to me like she hates mainland China, moving all of her relatives and family members to Taiwan, and yet here she is still loyal to the party. As evil as making your kid do propaganda videos with you for views and whatnot other purposes, this actually sparks a discussion of the broader issue at hand, which is why are Chinese mainland spouses coming to Taiwan, yet they're not giving up their identity from the mainland. In fact, they're actively trying to pursue this sort of conversion of the Taiwanese ideology into one that is belonging to the CCP. Actually, many accounts like hers exist on Douyin, and their purpose is to paint this idea to normalize Taiwan as a province, that it is part of China, that to ignore all of their democratic governments and elected systems, their existing laws. The idea is something quite simple as we want to capture your system by using your system that got us into your island in the first place. Just do the math. One mainland bride gets you 5 to 6 additional Chinese family members. And so they're flooding the island with their ideologies, with their way of life, with their brainwashing, and sometimes even a purpose directly ordered from the government. What a great deal. But now, of course, the Taiwanese government has been alerted because of this, and they say that free speech is not an excuse to say things like that, which now warrants an investigation into national security at that level, because you're actively saying China should invade Taiwan with their military force. That is, stepping over the boundary of free speech. Calling for a conquest is not the same as saying that Taiwan should elect a different president, right? These are 2 different things. And by the way, if you want to support Taiwan or support China Insider, consider checking out our best-selling t-shirt at davidzang.net, which is the West Taiwan t-shirt. And let me tell you, this is a really good way to defeat some of the CCP propaganda. around Taiwan, because why not just call the rest of China West Taiwan? So check it out at davidzhang.net. Also, if you're considering supporting the channel with a donation, the link is also in the description. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of you who have donated to China Insider in the past. Your contribution is of great value to our channel's growth, as well as just, it's a little bit of a confidence boost for me as well to keep going doing these episodes. As you can see now, YouTube seems to have suppressed a lot of my views, especially in the short side. They say is problems with the algorithm, but who knows? All I know is I want to keep going, so your support is much appreciated. Thanks so much again for your donation. While the CCP's goal is to flood the Taiwanese society with just headcounts, right? Individuals who are here for the purpose of marriage, what they're not doing is enforcing the ideological transformation. Now, if you think about immigrating or assimilating into any other country, you're usually supposed to be able to accept or at least be versed in that country's primal or primary ideology, such as if you come to the United States, right, you have to understand the U.S. Constitution. You have to swear during your citizenship swearing ceremony to defend the Constitution of the United States. But when Chinese spouses come to Taiwan, it seems like there is no requirement for them to actually stay loyal to Taiwan rather than mainland China. As far as I understand it, that there's a special pathway for spouses from mainland China compared to other foreign spouses when it comes to the Taiwanese citizenship process. They're not required to give up their Chinese citizenship or passport, so many of them end up traveling back and forth between mainland and Taiwan anyways, and oftentimes after they meet the requirement for stay, of course. During all this time, their kids are going back and forth as well. They're taught the mainland ideology, and they're not really accepting the true values of a democracy, which is in Taiwan. So here's the issue. Because Immigration Authority has revoked her stay, but her dependents, kids who are born in Taiwan, it makes the whole thing really complicated as what ultimately they will do, whether they're kicking her out by herself or just, letting her stay but under heavy watch or something like that. So that's a part we'll have to watch for the further development. She has since deleted most of her old uploads calling for Taiwan's reunification and the invasion of Taiwan, kept some of the ones where she's talking about her free speech issues. To the mainland fans, she is just a patriotic influencer. But this sparks a wider problem, which is that Taiwan is under attack through multitudes of tactics from the mainland, from the CCP. One of them is in which they want to evoke emotional, moral, as well as ideological responses on the island that such in a ways that they feel like they're a part of China. If you think about marriage as a Trojan horse, it's essentially a weapon of war. The people that come here, like I mentioned just now, they don't seek democracy and freedom. Rather, they seek a temporary refuge, or they come with a special purpose, which we'll talk about next. It's like Desperate Housewives meets Red Dawn, the movie. Even now, some lawmakers in Taiwan are calling to lower the number of years it takes for them to become actual citizens from 6 years to 4 years. If you think about it, that's in some ways, or at least I view it, as an expressway for immigration of pro-China individuals. Not to mention the burden on the taxpayers already in Taiwan, because especially with the healthcare system, Taiwan has some of the best in the world, whereas China has some of the worst. And so you're adding extra pressure to the Taiwanese society. But the biggest issue is the censorship and the special missions which they bring to the island. Here's a really interesting case recently. A mid-level worker that works for Asus, which is a Taiwanese technology company, she married a Taiwanese man, joined a union at the company, then subsequently started to conduct political censorship and critical of the CEO and the management's decision to include so-called anti-China media in their Taiwanese reports. She called them pro-Taiwan independence media, of course, and says that this violates the Chinese Communist Party's crime of splitting the state. Now, according to Chinese law on intelligence and espionage, quote, any organization or citizen shall, in accordance with the law, support, assist, and cooperate with national intelligence work and keep confidential the secrets of national intelligence work that they become aware of. So what this essentially says is they're clearly mandated to collect and gather information on Taiwan while they're there, because as long as they remain not giving up their citizenship with China, they have an interest to essentially listen to the state. Plus, a lot of them have bigger family, extended family members with relatives in China, or even vested financial interests back home in mainland China, that they often will do this in exchange for safety on either their businesses or their families and so forth. Women aren't the only ones. A recent high-profile marriage that shook Taiwan was Bo Guagua's wedding with a daughter of a Taiwanese business tycoon. Bo Guagua, for those of you who might have heard of his name, was the son, he's a playboy, but the son of a former top-level official named Bo Xilai, who also happens to be a princeling playboy, etc. And he was known for his scandals when Bo Guagua was studying in Europe. In the UK actually. And so he got married to a Taiwanese girl, and this wedding was widely seen, very controversial, as this high-profile mainland spouse situation, right? It sparks a debate between whether love is the pure intention for a lot of these cases, or is there a wider plan to defeat Taiwan from within? And part of that, what the CCP watches is, and also laughing at, is the vulnerability of the open society system, which Taiwan has, the United States also has, where they allow these outside forces to come in very easily. And until, individual cases like this, where you have to invoke or revoke the authorities of them to stay here, then it becomes, a very targeted issue. But speaking on a broader level, it's hard to enforce the ideological side of things as well. So if those people are coming here without the intention to benefit this society, but they have a malicious attempt to actually bring about the destruction of that society, well, then obviously, that's probably something that you have to look into. And it's not a freedom of speech anymore. It's a national security level of issue. Because ultimately, if you look at what the CCP is really about, it's not to fight a war as the first tactic, right? According to their United Front strategy. So it's the CCP using the Taiwanese system against Taiwanese. And we all know that when they do take over, there's no more free speech or freedom to vote, whatever the case may be. So by then, it's obviously too late. So this whole argument about free speech doesn't really stand. All right, thanks so much for watching today's episode of BTFO in Taiwan. If you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, bye-bye.
Ease up!
There is little time.
Straight from Outland! Perfectly balanced!
carefully.